What is up? I need a haircut. Holy cow. My hair is very, very long, but you know what? Maybe that's what gives me my power. Anyways, we're going to look at Peoria tournament today. There's some really cool decks that kind of surprised me, honestly. So I want to go ahead and just look at the top 8 decks, how I think that's going to affect Sacramento, opinions, I guess, reactions, all of the above. Let's get into it. We had a pretty interesting top 8. Let's see, we had Chen Pao, Gardevoir, Sablezard, which I was not expecting at all. 2 Miraidons, like, whatever. A Mew, which I thought was interesting, and then 2 Lost Box decks in the finals, which makes a lot of sense. Lugia was really popular day 1, and then it fell off quite a bit for day 2. And so, actually doesn't surprise me that much that Lost Box did so well. What does surprise me is that Kyogre's won twice now, and specifically a Canadian player. Andrew Estrada won Pittsburgh with Lost Box Kyogre, Canadian player. Now Raymond Long with Kyogre and a Canadian player. And so Raymond's list I like a lot. So let's just get into it. I think his and Terrence I think are like the only ones I've seen thoroughly. So let's take a look at Raymond's list. My face kind of cuts this off a little bit. Let me see if I can zoom out a little bit more. I'm just gonna like, sure. Okay, so 4 Comfy, 2 Sableye, Cramorant, typical Lost Box deck. You know, nothing too surprising. The main surprising thing about this, this is Lost Box Kyogre, typical Lost Zone variant. However, the interesting thing, specifically in the Pokemon, I guess, starting first, we've got the Zamazenta, which is actually super cool. I was talking with my buddy Drew Kennett about this, and he brought it up actually before Peoria even happened. He was like, wait, is Zamazenta like kind of nuts right now? The math with Zamazenta doing 220 is actually really relevant for multiple reasons. One, you KO Miraidon EX really, really easily, and Chen Pao EX really, really easily. Miraidon EX, you don't KO them if they have a Bravery Charm on them, but Chen Pao, you're hitting for weakness, so you're killing them regardless. So Zamazenta feels really good into the metagame right now. I think this was honestly like the game changer for his deck. It's good in the Lost Box Mirror. It's good against Chen Pao and Miraidon. It's good against Charizard because 220 plus 110 from Cramorant is 330, enough to KO a Charizard. Sometimes Lost Box has a problem with KOing these really, really high HP Pokemon, and Zamazenta essentially fixes that problem. Doing 220 is massive. You don't need to like try and Kyogre snipe it on the bench, or like have a big Dragonite that does 250 to it. You get to do that massive amount of damage with just a single prizer. And actually, Kyogre can't even hit Charizard EX on the bench because of that Terrastal ability. So Zamazenta probably coming in huge in a lot of matchups. I really, really like the Zamazenta. Thought it was a really cool inclusion. He did have to sacrifice the Dragonite, right? Because you're always going to play Water Psychic energies, obviously, because you're a Lost Box deck. And then, so you're not going to cut those. And so he cut the Lightning energies, so no more Dragonite, see ya. Don't need you, and had Metal energies instead. However, what this means is that now there's no more basic Pokemon V to use for a Seal Stone. And so I really like what Raymond did here in including now the Pidgeot V. Because the Pidgeot V, sure, you get to play it down for a Seal Stone, shuffle it back into the deck, remove that liability from the board. But what it also does is basically makes you so that you're always ahead in the Lost Box Mirror match. So basically, what you can do in the Lost Box Mirror match is bench Pidgeot and just leave it on your bench. Wait for your opponent to play Escape Rope, promote the Pidgeot V, and if it's their first turn, if it's Lost Box's first turn, they're probably not going to get the turn 1 Raikou or something like that to KO your Pidgeot V. Usually they're just going to be using Cramorant to do 110 into your Pidgeot, which then your next turn, you can just pivot out of the Pidgeot, shuffle Pidgeot back into the deck, and essentially rob a turn from your opponent, which is huge in Lost Box Mirror Match when you're just going, trading prize for prize. My buddy Terrence, who got top 8 at this tournament, was telling me how big of a deal the Pidgeot V was. And so, really like to see that in Raymond's list. Huge fan of the Pidgeot. Think that's awesome. The rest of this, pretty typical Lost Box. The Roxanne is kind of cool. Don't mind that. I think Roxanne is a really good card in general right now, specifically because it helps against Iono. So a weird, Roxanne is obviously good for disruption, but it's also kind of better than Iono because let's say you're at 2 prizes and your opponent's at 2 prizes. If you Iono, you're both getting 2 cards. Not very good, especially if you're trying to pull off a Kyogre play and you want to be drawing a bunch of cards and you have a really low hand size. Getting 2 cards is not very good. Iono is more disruption than it is consistency in your late game. Whereas Roxanne, let's say you get Iono to 2 cards, you are able to find your Roxanne, play it. Now that's a shuffle draw 6, which is really good for your late game consistency. And so I'm a big fan of the Roxanne too, honestly. You could sub it for Iono here, but again, it's that difference in late game consistency. So Roxanne, super good. Rest of this, pretty standard. 3 Super Rod, 2 Energy Recycler. I like that. I've seen some lists go 2 Recycler, 2 Rod. I like the extra recovery. I like the one of Stadiums. I think it's cool to just have a mixture of Stadiums, have a bunch of different options. And then the rest of this, pretty standard Kyogre. So honestly, I love this deck. I think this is a super solid list. Not surprised it won. I think it has a lot of cool options and made a lot of really intelligent changes to your typical Lost Box Kyogre list. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is the norm going forward. So definitely keep that in mind. Okay. So now moving on to second place is Jack Carter's list. From what I remember, this is just typical Turbo Lost Box. So we've basically got 4 Comfy, 2 Save, all of the above. We got the Dragonite V now and the Raikou V, like I was mentioning before. No Drapion, which is interesting. Neither of these Lost Box decks played Drapion. Kyogre doesn't really need to, but interesting that Turbo Lost Box decks have also been cutting Drapion, especially since Mew actually did. I think that explains why Mew did pretty well in this tournament. Everybody's been cutting their Spiritombs as well. 4 Super Rod, it's kind of cool. There's nothing too surprising about this list. It's pretty standard. I feel like this has been the standard ever since Victor Ong did really well with this at NAIC. I feel like the list has just pretty much stayed the same for Turbo. So not surprised it did. It got second. Seems pretty solid. Then we've got Rowan. Mew actually top 4'd. This is kind of surprising to me. I wasn't expecting this at all, honestly. I kind of was digging on Mew, crapping on Mew maybe slightly. I just thought it was a really bad deck. I was like, you just lose the Charizard, but I don't think one, you could see he has the Luxray in this list. For those that don't know, Luxray, for a DTE, looks at your opponent's hand, discards a trainer card there. I think I underestimated how good this card was against Charizard. Charizard has really bad early game consistency. And so when I thought about the Mew versus Charizard matchup, I was like, okay, Mew can judge path, but that's kind of cheeky. It doesn't usually stick. And then as soon as Charizard gets a rare candy Zard, they have so much time, essentially. And they just have to attach twice, right? And then they're one-shotting everything, and you can hardly deal with that. I think I underestimated how good Luxray was at disruption. You can remove the Stadium counter. You can remove the Pokemon out of their hand with Grabber, which is really, really cool. You have the Judge Path disruption, which is great. And you've also got Box of Disaster, which is also very big in the Charizard EX matchup. Not only is it good against Gardevoir EX, obviously, as we saw from the World Championships, but also really good against Charizard EX since you can bring it, you're never hitting 330 HP, right? It's literally impossible with Mew copying Technoblast. And so bringing it down to that 250 HP is so much more manageable. Now you need 2 power tablets. So much easier. So the box is also really good against Zard. So I like the box of disasters, love the grabbers. I think 2 is perfect, honestly. I've seen some with 3. I like consistency, I think, over the disruption. So I like having that. Luxray, awesome. I played Luxray myself at a tournament last year, at Vancouver Regionals last year, when Lugia was the best deck in format. So you could Path Judge Lugia and then Fang Snipe, get rid of a Stadium card. So I'm a little disappointed. I didn't think of this deck, honestly. I really just underestimated Mew way too much. It was a great tournament to play Mew, honestly. So really big fan of Mew. Do I think it's going to be good for Sacramento? Not necessarily. I think this was the tournament to play Mew. Now that it's on the radar, now you have people, they're going to put their Spiritombs back in, they're going to put their Drapions back in, and you just like, okay, Drapion you don't auto lose, but like Spiritomb, if you're not playing the Fusion Energy variant of Mew, like, there's no chance. There's no chance. Okay, let's look at the Miraidons. Actually, both of these guys played the same list, I believe. So let's take a look. I'm really not a huge fan of Miraidon in general. I think it's kind of high roll, a little gimmicky. I don't think it trades very well with, like, in the prize trade. Like, sure, you can put Bravery Charm on Miraidon EX to kind of bump its HP up a little bit. But you're just, I don't know. Maybe I haven't given it enough love, like, in testing, but I hate this card. I hate Electric Generator. It's so bad. It's so high roll. And I'm just like, it reminds me of the old Max Elixir, which was look at the top 6 cards of your deck, find a basic energy, and put it on one of your bench Pokemon. And just whiffing it just feels so bad. It's so bad. You're just like, I play 15 energies. Why am I missing this? And the Flaffies kind of helps. You could Dynamotor and, get energies onto your board that way. But this deck just feels like, I don't know. I don't understand how it's doing so well, honestly. I'm not a huge fan of this deck. Raichu's cool to get the big one-shot, but, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of this deck. I don't know. I'm not sure what else to say. It feels like just like a beat stick kind of deck that doesn't have a whole lot of options. They didn't even play the Zapdos EX from 151. And the Zapdos EX is like, I'm not surprised if it's bad. I think it is kind of bad and kind of gimmicky. But I don't know. It made this deck a little bit less linear, I think. And so I'm kind of disappointed to not see a Zapdos EX deck. Or a Zapdos EX tech. Then we've got my buddy Terrence. Shout out to Terrence. I was testing with Terrence the night before. His list is awesome, by the way. I love it. I actually really, really like it. I didn't look at his list the night before. I was just like kind of testing with him and theory mining a little bit the night before. And he said he was going to play Sablezard, and I was like, okay, like, I don't think that's a good idea, but like, sure, like play whatever you're comfortable with. I think in this format, when there's so many different decks, 100% play what you're most comfortable with. Play whatever deck you're going to play at the highest level, because that's what everybody else is basically going to be doing for the most part as well. And so that was his idea behind playing this deck, and honestly paid off so well. Good Chien-Pao matchup, good Miraidon matchup, I think good Zard matchup, hitting 250 to 2 Charizard EX and then cleaning up with Sableye is very good. If you do 250 to 2 Charizard EXs, they have 80 HP left. Okay, that's a little kind of not great math. But, like, or you could poke one with a Cram, hit it with Charizard later. I think you have a better matchup than Turbo Lost Box has. And so, although they can Lost City or Radiant Charizard, I still think it's fine. Anyways, those were his reasonings behind playing this deck. He was like, this is the deck I played at the highest level, and it definitely paid off. And I think it is honestly a solid call for Sacramento, too. I think, yeah, good Chien-Pao matchup, good Miraidon matchup, probably good Charizard matchup. I think the only bad matchup you have is Lugia, and that didn't do so well. It was good day 1, and then bombed day 2. Like, the conversion rate, how many... Because Lugia was the second most played deck for day one. And then the like 5th or 6th most played deck in day 2, meaning that it did not do very good. And so I think Lugia is the main thing you have to worry about with this deck, and considering how well Lugia did, I don't know. I think I kind of like this deck for Sack as well. This and Mew are like, I like those decks a lot. So let's see. Anything interesting about his list? He has the Ditto in here, which I didn't know he played. I found this out only after he had gotten top 8, and I was literally talking with him the night before. No idea he played the Ditto. It's so sick. I love it. It's awesome. You can just, like, it's a 5th Comfy. It's genius. You play the Ditto, you swap into Comfy if you start it, and you can even, like, save the Ditto. Let's say you have, like, you start Comfy, you're totally fine, you're chilling, you're taking your turn 1, and you're like, frick, I can't find my Cramorant, because, like, I play three Fog Crystal and 4 Nest Ball, but, like, Fog Crystal doesn't get the Cramorant, so I need to find a Nest Ball, and shoot, I can't find it, but I found my Ditto. You can swap into the Ditto and then transform into Cramorant, so it's also like a 3rd Cramorant. It's just so sick. It's so good, and I think it boosts the consistency of this deck quite a lot, honestly, which I'm a big fan of. I think playing a very consistent Lost Box list is a good idea right now. He has the Hawlucha, which is great for the mirror match, so you can, you can KO 270 HP Pokemon at a time. Let's say Charizard is playing the 60 HP Pidgey instead of the 50 HP one, and you get a really fast Sableye. Now you can Hawlucha ping, KO up Charmander and a Pidgey, which is like a game-winning play. You got the 2 Vacuum in here, so you can just go speed, speed, speed. Force Switch, Force Gabriel, got an Echoing Horn here. 3 Beach Court, which when I played Sablezard, when I was testing it, I liked a split of all of the stadiums, Beach Court and Artisan. I had Magma Basin, but we took it out, so we only had 2 stadiums. And I liked having Beach and Artisan. With Raihan, it was kind of cool to play a Raihan and then search out whether I needed like a Pokemon or a retreating option. And so it was kind of nice to have that split. So I kind of like that, but the rest of this list seems solid. I think 1 Super Rod, 2 Clara is all the recovery you need. 3 Fog Crystal is honestly really, really cool. He told me beforehand, he was like, honestly, all I want to do with this deck is just attack with Sableye over and over and over because Sableye is broken. And I was like, yeah, honestly, you're not wrong, and this list does that very well. So, congrats to him for top 8. He's a homie. Then Brent Tonneson playing Gardevoir. I also played Gardevoir for this event and didn't do great. So, well, let's see how his list differed. He had the Mirage Step Kirlia. Mirage Step is so good right now. It's so good. It saves your games. Like, it wins you games that you should have lost. There are a lot of times where I just started singular Ralts and, like, passed against, like, a Chien-Pao, for example. And I was like, oh, I'm screwed. This is awful. And then, but I had, like, Level Ball Psychic Energy in my hand. And so I had the option to, like, grab a second Ralts with my Level Ball. I was like, nope, you know what? I have my Mirage Step Kirlia. I should be fine. And so there was a lot of situations like that, honestly. You have to make sure it's not prized before you go for that play, but it's usually a very good way to get back into the game. So I really like that. He had the Mew EX as well. I've thought more about the Mew EX, and I actually like it a lot now. What the Mew EX lets you do is, 1, good against Giratina, sure, if you happen to play against it. Giratina is going down in play, so that makes Mew a little worse. But it's really, really good in the Charizard matchup, which I didn't realize prior to this event. Only after thinking about it more did I realize that. You can play towards an end game against Charizard where you can use Mew EX to copy Charizard EX's Burning Darkness attack and do 330 to it. You don't need a reversal energy on your Guardy. You don't need 9 energies on your Zacian. There was some... you also avoid Panic Mask, which I've been seeing some Charizards playing. And so I kind of like the Mew EX. The Charizard matchup is a little bit sketchy. And so playing the Mew EX would make me feel a little bit more secure in that matchup. So let's see what the rest of this. There's 4 Iono, 2 Boss, 2 Worker. That's fine, I guess. Like, I'm not a huge fan of Worker. I like Penny instead. I also like Lost Vacuum over that. So Brent had a couple more draw supporters, I suppose, than the typical Gardevoir list. Typical Gardevoir lists are playing like 3 Iono. No, 3 Iono, 1 Research, 1 Worker, so an extra one, I guess. Oh, this is interesting. I actually didn't see this. Let's see if I can move my head out of the way. Brent played 4 Ultra Ball, 4 Fog Crystal. So I actually like this a lot because Tord's list plays 3 Ultra Ball, 2 Fog Crystal. So slightly less consistency. Brent here has increased the ball search options, increased the discarding options, because Ultra Ball is also good for discarding Psychic Energies from your hand. But I like that change. I think that's a cool change, because Gardevoir was feeling a little inconsistent for me. Fog Crystals are just solid. 2 Rare Candy, honestly fine if you have Mirage Step. I like 3 because getting a turn 2 Gardevoir EX is so good. You're just like beating down the opponent, which you just get to go fast. And it's like, if you get a turn 2 Gardevoir attack off, you're just like feeling so good. Or a turn 2 Gardevoir and then whatever attacker you want. Feels so good. 2 Super Rod, pretty standard. 2 Collapsed. 2 Collapsed is kind of cool. With Worker too, so you can like play your Collapsed, Worker it away, and then play a 5th bench Pokemon. That's kind of cool. Seems not bad. So honestly, the thing I like the most about this list is the added consistency with the Ultra Ball and the Fog Crystal. I think that's the best. Gardevoir is feeling not as good right now, though. There's a lot of Lost Box. Charizard matchup is sketchy. Chen Pao matchup is sketchy. Rhydon matchup, that's fine. Just don't dead draw and you can beat Rhydon, that's fine. Sablezard matchup is sketchy. Or wait, yeah, against Gardevoir, yeah. A little sketchy, any Lost Box variant, I suppose. Okay, and then last but not least, we got Chen Pao. Chen Pao Excalibur. The Casino deck. There's always a Casino deck in this format. And, God, it's Blue Miraidon, the blue high roll deck. God, this deck's so high roll. During my tournament, I experienced both ends. During my tournament, round 1 was Chen Pao. And my opponent went, like, turn 2, Baxcalibur, cross-switch your Manaphy, canceling Cologne, 3 on Greninja, snipe your 2 Curlius. I was like, holy cow. I was like, chill, bro, chill. It's just a game. Calm down. And then, it was like my round 3 or 4, then they go, like, Frigibax pass. And then they try to Pokestop later in the game, and he goes, Pokestop. He just needs something, anything, right? An Ultra Ball, a Nest Ball, something. He goes, Pokestop, Irida. And he already played 1 Irida, so that was all 4 Iridas gone by the second or third turn of the game. It was kind of funny. I was happy about it, but I felt so bad. I was like, good God, this deck is so high roll, so casino. I personally would not play this deck. I think it's dumb and high roll. But this list looks. I mean, Grant Chen's a great player, so I can't just write this off to like being high roll, like obviously, right? And he's a great player, and probably the deck was at least not mean to him throughout the day. He got to top 8, so like that's awesome. I don't doubt that the deck is very, very powerful when it gets going. So, anything interesting about this list? Only 5 supporters. 4 Irida, 1 Iono. Honestly, fine. You got the 2-2 B-Barrel in there. 3 Candy. All this is pretty standard. I like seeing a bunch of 4s on my deck list, so I like this. 4 Retrieval, 4 Crossword. That's pretty standard. 2 Canceling Cologne, 2 Super Rod, 1 Heavy Ball, 4 Pokestop. Nice. 9 Water Energy. Honestly, a very vanilla list. Grant Chen's just a good player. He probably just, was able to pilot this deck to a really high finish. So, cool. So that's all the top 8 decks. Kind of interesting. I enjoyed seeing the variety in the top 8 that we got. Thought we got a lot of very interesting lists, a lot of lists I really like, and a lot of lists that I'm like not surprised did well, because I was like, this makes a lot of sense. So hopefully I was able to convey some of my thoughts and some of why the lists were interesting and good. What do I think for Sacramento? That is going to go in my Patreon, which I'll put the link in below. So feel free to sign up for the Patreon if you want some of my thoughts on these decks going into Sacramento, as well as what I'm going to play. You get access to all of my 60-card deck lists right before the tournament, and you'll get a couple of my thoughts on like which one of these decks I'm going to be testing leading up to the tournament, and probably like a description of all the matchups, I think, too. I have one in mind, so be sure to check out the Patreon if that interests you. It's only $1 a month, so check it out. And then also, if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. This is a growing channel, and I want to make this into something huge, so liking and subscribing helps me out a ton. We've also got a suitcase giveaway going on, so follow me on Twitter for that at SantruZavala. You can also find more information about that in the description below. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.